Good morning and welcome to the 2023 TWC Workforce Forum. You guys are in Better Together, AEL, and local workforce development boards serving out-of-school youth. My name is Valerie Robertson. I will serve as your moderator this morning. I'll be monitoring the room and handling any issues as they arise. Forum materials are available on the TWC website. If you have not silenced your phones, please take care of that as well. If time permits, we will have question and answers, and I'll be walking around with the microphones. We can make sure all of them are recorded. If we don't have enough time to answer questions, you may request presenters' contact information at the end of the session. Also, you will receive an electronic survey after the event. Please complete this as your feedback is greatly appreciated. If you are needing CEUs, the table is at the end by Phoenix South. With that, we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's presentation. And I'd like to introduce Ms. Mahalia.
Hello. Hello and good morning, everyone. Man, I'm actually pretty thrilled with this turnout. This is always a tough one. First one in the morning. We were just talking, I was like, okay, the first session in the morning is tough. The last session of the day is tough. And that one after lunch as a presenter will about kill you. So the coveted mid-morning session time is what we always go for. So I'm thrilled that you guys are here. Before we get started today, I just want to kind of go about the room. Let's figure out who's here joining us so that'll help to inform our presenters for today, including myself. So raise your hand if you are a workforce board or workforce board contractor. Raise your hand. Okay, many of you. What about vocational rehabilitation folks? Okay, adult education and literacy. Awesome. Elena, who's on my team's like, is that me? What about TWC staff? Oh, okay. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm not going to talk very much this morning because I want to make sure that I leave time for a presentation and also questions at the end. So we always tend to kind of, in our minds, leave that time for 15 minutes worth of questions, and then, we get there and it's like 5 seconds worth of questions. So I don't want to do that today. So how many of you are familiar with the term opportunity youth? And that term, okay. So opportunity youth is defined as individuals who are between the ages of 16 and 24. They're not in school, meaning they're not in secondary school perhaps, but they're also not in post-secondary. And they're not in work or not working in a job that, has a sufficient wage. So nationwide, if you think about the U.S. and our nationwide statistics, there's about 5 million opportunity youth and young adults out there. 1 in 10 of those 5 million live here in Texas. So we have about 500,000 opportunity youth individuals in Texas. If you take that number and break it down a little bit further, we have about 100,000 of those 500,000 folks that don't have a high school diploma. In a longitudinal study done by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board back in 2012, they followed a cohort of 8th graders here in Texas. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this study, but the purpose of the study was to follow them up to 6 years post their intended graduation date to see how did they do, what did they accomplish. Only 22% of that cohort of 8th graders that they followed for that time period achieved a post-secondary credential. The very first barrier that we started to really see those individuals as non-completers and not able to obtain a post-secondary credential was their high school diploma, with nearly 20% of them not completing high school. So I don't know if they're going to do another study, but those numbers are pretty staggering, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to continue to have discussions like we're having today and kind of see how we can be better together when serving this population. So it goes without saying that the Texas Workforce Commission is really committed and wants to support individuals and get them back onto career pathways. And that really helps to lend upward socioeconomic mobility for these folks and get them back into a workforce and supporting employers here in Texas. So today, I wanted to introduce to you our panel of presenters. We have Linda Ross, who's a program specialist with Adult Education and Literacy at the Texas Workforce Commission. She works on my team. And myself, I guess I should introduce myself. Y'all don't know who I am. I just make assumptions. So my name's Mahalia Baldini. I am the State Director for Adult Education and Literacy at the Texas Workforce Commission. Linda is on my team. And she came to me a while back and she was like, I have passion for this. I'm digging into this. I want to learn more. I want to say more about this. And I tend to just let my staff, if they really have passion for something, I just get out of the way. And support them however I can. And she has brought Jauneen Maldonado with her today to also talk about this. Jauneen is the Adult Education and Literacy Director for Workforce Solutions Tarrant County. And she's going to be talking about a program that they have been working in conjunction with Adult Ed and the Workforce Board to really outreach, recruit, and work with this population. So I'm thrilled that they're here, so I'm going to take my cue and get out of the way, and I'm going to turn it over to Linda Ross. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. How are y'all? Good? We're awake? Good. It's been a wild ride, hasn't it, this year, right? Okay. Some of the things that we're going to discuss today is really the impact of the out-of-school youth across the board, across Texas. We're going to look at dropouts. We're going to look at some of the high-poverty counties, as well as AEL enrollments and literacy and numeracy skills and unemployment. There are so many opportunities out there for us to work together, really taking advantage of all the different services that each of us bring to the table so that we can better serve our customer, and in this case, the very young, 16 to 24. And then we're going to, as Mahalia said, it's going to be an exciting time when you hear Ms. Jauneen talk about E Squared and their success there. And then hopefully we'll have 15 minutes left to talk about, or to give you an opportunity to ask questions. The objectives for today is really just to understand this population better and understand the impact that they have on Texas. It's quite huge. And then once again, just as I mentioned earlier, really promote those opportunities, benefits, and synergies by working together. And then, of course, to integrate and innovate. This young lady is 17 years old in that picture. I had the pleasure of being her case manager in the Choices program. She was working towards her GED and raising her baby daughter. Her goal was to complete her GED and then go on to college and become a physical therapist. She earned her GED 3 months after this picture. 17, keep that in mind. I've got 18-year-old grandkids, so this is still, in my mind, someone very young, someone just learning about life. The next time I saw her was at Temple College. She came and embraced me, and she said, Miss Linda, guess what? I'm going and I'm taking classes here, and I'm gonna pass, and I'm gonna go on to the next level. I'm gonna do good, and I'm gonna give back. Man, talk about such a proud moment. It's an incredible feeling, and I know you guys have felt that. That's why we're here, right? Absolutely. Youth in high school. Since 2016, Texas has seen a drop of 5%. That's pretty amazing. Yes, we had COVID. Now we need to figure out how do we get them back on track so they're staying in high school or they're earning their high school equivalency. I pulled the TEA report for academic year 2020 through 2021. I looked at the 7th through 12th grade students. For that academic year, nearly 50,000 students dropped out. 50,000 in Texas. That's amazing to me. Now, the table below shows 9th through 12th grade, the population, the dropout numbers, and the percent dropout. Another fact that surprised me is that we've got more economically disadvantaged children in Texas than we do who are not economically disadvantaged. That's heartbreaking to me. And if you look at the percent dropout, you can see the difference it makes in terms of staying in school or dropping out. I've also included ESL or bilingual students, foster care, homeless, and Title I, Students Succeed. Every Student Succeeds Act. This slide shows a snapshot of dropouts as well as AEL enrollments across some of the counties, including the high poverty counties, which are counties that have 25% or more that are economically disadvantaged. So we've got 4 columns here, or 4 sets of columns. The first one is showing you the number of dropouts that are in the poverty category for that county, and then the percent. The second one is the ESL. The third column is actually the total for the county. So when you look at some of these numbers, it's amazing to me again. There are areas that we can work together to make a difference. We're going to have to work together. You know, technology is advancing so quickly, so very fast, that jobs are changing, and our children today, they can't be left behind. This population cannot be left behind. The last column shows the number of students that are enrolled in participating in AEL. And then we've got numbers for students that are participating in our IET program. Now, I want to say this snapshot for AEL was done back in December. Those numbers have greatly increased. So we have 254 counties in Texas. I had no idea until I started researching this data. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of counties. We really are a big state. AEL is serving or has students in 195 counties. We are providing IETs, integrated education and training, in 109 counties. For the high poverty counties, we've got 13 counties covered. There's still work to do. Oh, by the way, I said that data was back in December. We're almost at 61,000 students being served across Texas in AEL. Yeah, let's do it. You know, that's a lot of students. You know, and it takes a lot of commitment from everyone, from every provider, every instructor, every case manager. All these folks are on board. Another interesting area that I discovered, I'm a big Googler, so if I want to know something, man, I am Googling away. PEOC, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right. No, I see Ann going like this, so I'm saying it incorrectly. English is not my first language, by the way, just FYI. Is a survey that's done. using small area estimates and the American ACS Society, Basically, it is looking at skill levels. When this survey was done for Texas, the majority of our students in the 16 to 24-year-old age bracket were at level 1 or level 2. There are 5 levels to this. If you're at a level 1, you're at risk for difficulties, whether it's printed material or looking at numeracy. The upper end of level 1 is reading short text and understanding meaning to perform simple tasks. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and performing basic one-step math. Level 2, you're getting better. You're nearing proficiency, but you're still struggling in some cases. So we've got work to do. I've got probably a 10-page spreadsheet looking at this data by county. At the top, we've got the literacy section. Below level 1, which is an average score of 0 to 175, through level 1, level 2, level 3. And I've listed the number of counties that actually fall between those levels. What was surprising to me was when I looked at this data, there weren't any counties that fell in level 4 or 5. Matter of fact, we only had 15 counties that actually achieved level 3 skills in literacy and numeracy. Now, I can tell you, I've got grandchildren that are in high school, and if they don't, and I hope I don't upset anybody, but if they don't pass a test, they're allowed to go back and do an open book and change the answers until they pass. That's not the solution, guys. It may look good on paper, but it's not the solution. Not if we want to continue to get big businesses or even homegrown businesses to thrive here in Texas, right? So once again, that message of better together is way more than just us in this room. There are so many partners that can be involved in this, and it does take a village. At this age, most of these young adults, almost young adults, need encouragement. They need to know somebody believes in them. And I'll tell you what, I've had customers come to me and say, "You're the first person that told me I could do this." My family didn't think. Matter of fact, they were like, "Why are you wasting your time?" So when we approach the youth here, we approach with a caring heart, mentoring and encouraging so that they hear it somewhere. The more you hear it, the more likely you are to stay focused and work towards your goals and work towards being able to give back to the community. This just came out. It's the February 2023 unemployment rates by age group. This doesn't capture whether this population is in school or not. It's strictly, are you able and are you willing to work? And if you look at the 16 to 24 bracket, that's half of the pie. They're wanting to work, but they're unemployed. How can we help them become better trained so they are employable, that companies do hire them? Mahalia mentioned disconnected youth. In Texas, that population at the end of 2020 was 14%. and it's growing. So let's re-engage our out-of-school youth. The potential of re-engaged students is financial return to Texas taxpayers, $7 billion. The social impact return to Texas, almost 20 million. You can say 19. I like to think up high. Solving these system challenges to strengthen education and workforce training is our job, right? I feel like it is. I feel like as we talk to our customers, our mutual customers in this age bracket, we give them opportunities, and we try to ensure by working together basic skills or basic survival needs, let me rephrase that, are met. So many of these customers are homeless. Electricity is turned off. They don't have enough food. You know, how can they succeed in school if they're faced with all of these just basic need challenges? So like I said, it really does take a village. I'm showing workforce as well as AEL, but like I said, there are so many system partners. We have the Texas workforce system, so better together, right? But just looking at these two, there are so many complementary areas where we can work together. Right now, AEL provides HSE credential testing vouchers. The age bracket is only 21 and up. Workforce, on the other hand, can provide it for 16 to 20-year-olds. From an AEL perspective, we're going to help students get their HSE, their GED. We're going to help them with their English language acquisition, and so many other areas. But by partnering with Workforce, we can ensure that their basic needs are being met so that they can stay, they can complete, and then they can give back. This isn't really my chart. I kind of modified a chart someone else made. But, you know, it's talking about the partners and how do customers hear about what we can offer together. Our system partners, employers, the community, right? So let's get connected to the youth. Let's get them enrolled. Let's support them so that they feel part of a community, people that believe in them, so that they can progress to completion as well as employment, promotion, or furthering their education. The case for integration, I think you guys know this, so I probably shouldn't even bother putting this slide in here. But I did want to point out a couple of things. Federal Code of Regulations, Section 681.430, co-enrollment. Title I out of school can be co-enrolled in Title II if eligibility is met for both. By the way, in the presentation on the web, you'll see some reference sheets, and it goes into more details about where the alignment is for Title I and II, where we connect. Section 681.460 through 470, partner with entities that can provide program elements at no cost. Hey folks, we don't charge anybody to help a student get their HSE. We don't charge anyone to become better in terms of learning this language. We don't charge anyone for being part of a community that wants them to succeed. And you don't either, so better together. By the way, Courtney Arbor sent out WD Letter 1322, Change 1. It talks about online systems, training systems, but in this letter, it also talks about choices customers. That if you have a choices customer who doesn't have their high school equivalency, you can co-enroll them. You can get credit for the fact that they are going to classes, and it will be in your numerator. So all you workforce solution boards and offices, what an opportunity. This is like low-hanging fruit to help out these customers. So in summary, as Mahalia mentioned earlier, we're losing a lot of students. 10 students an hour. 6 in 10 Texas students are economically disadvantaged, and you saw the skill levels. We've got to work on that. 195 Texas counties are being served in AEL. I know we'd like to increase it to the whole 254. Our vision, like everyone else, is no wrong door. You as a customer would not like having to go to one place, fill out a bunch of forms, go to another place, fill out a bunch of forms again, take a test in one area or one location, go to another location, take another test, meet with a case manager in another location, meet with your teachers or a career navigator in another. Why not try to eliminate some of these efforts? Leverage funding, that goes a long way. Increase customer retention, transition, long-term employment success, and reduce the dropout in unemployment rates. That's what a quality, customer-centric, integrated workforce system is all about. I love this slide. It's the integration continuum. So, as you leave today, where do you think you are on this continuum? And where would you like to be? And now, I'd like to turn over the clicker and the slides to Jauneen.
Wow, that's a tough act to follow. That was some great stats there. My mouth hit the floor a couple of times. I'm sure for you all the same. Thanks for choosing our session today, and I am just grateful to be able to be a part of this presentation and share and piggyback off of what Linda's put together and just share with you guys what we're doing in Tarrant County. But before I get started, I do just want to kind of set the stage a little bit so you understand the model itself and what we're doing, but also the parameters and kind of setup of our organization. So in Tarrant County, I am the Adult Education and Literacy Director, and I'm also board staff. So I'm actually part of the workforce board in Tarrant County. I came to them in 2016. They did not know about AEL. They didn't know what they were getting into, let's just say that. They were great. They've been very gracious with our program and been very willing to make changes and do what's necessary. And now we kind of have a movement in Tarrant County, and our board is super excited about the AEL program, and we've been able to work together to find ways to integrate before we even started talking about integration, actually. Because early on, we developed this mentality of we're doing many of the same things. It's to piggyback on what Linda said about forms and processes and We are absolutely killing these youth by having them duplicate processes and duplicate forms, and it's already hard to capture their attention. So we early on thought we really got to find ways to do this without having to ask them to keep on, continuing to do the same thing. So I did just want to set that stage. And in Tarrant County, in our adult ed program, we're slated to serve about 4,700 students. So that's 4,700. So that's a big number to serve. And a lot of that population, a large piece of that population is our youth. We discovered in our AEL program, we have a lot of those 16 to 24-year-olds that were part of the statistics that Linda shared with you about the dropouts, those that get there almost and not quite and decide this is not the path I want to take. Or as you guys know, and those of you that are working with youth know, the attention span is not there and the retention is like always the issue, right? So we're always looking at ways of how to address that. So I'm going to share with you just what's working in Tarrant County. I hope that when you leave here today, you can take some of this information and make it work in your programs. But just really quickly before I get started on my presentation, how many of you all are working directly with youth in your? Okay, good, yeah. Because I'm only asking that because I go into sessions and always like to learn about everything because, eventually we're working with everybody, so. All right, so we are at Tarrant County. Again, we're a consortium. You can see our Tarrant County logo, and our Adult Education and Literacy Consortium has 2 AICs on it. We also have our community college. We have a public library, and then we have Goodwill Industries that's also part of our consortium. And that's about me. So what is E-Squared? So E-Squared was a program we started back in 2016 when I came onto the board. I have the pleasure and am blessed to be able to office right next door to the youth program manager. And when I came on board, like I said earlier, they got very excited about what we bring to the table. And she was already struggling with her contractor to, of course, hit those numbers and outreach to those students. And so she said, hey, you're doing that? Well, I need that. So that's how this was kind of all born. And so what it is it specifically targets those out-of-school youth, and it's providing them with employment, barriers to employment and education through giving them wraparound services to continue their GED preparation, and then it provides a paid work experience for them as well. On Fridays, they actually provide them with the individualized mentoring and coaching, and then they give them their career readiness courses, and then they also connect them to employers or employment and education opportunities. So it's really a fully encompassed wraparound model to kind of handhold and carry them through the process of getting all those steps that they need to succeed. And again, as Mahalia was talking about earlier, we're really targeting those out-of-school youth, the 16 to 24. Those are the ones that we're serving. We are serving them either with or without a high school diploma because, as Linda was alluding to earlier, we do have some participants or students that have gone through and gotten their diploma but are still reading at maybe a 4th of grade level. I mean, they're really not up there where they need to be in order to be successful in our trainings and get them into employment. So we do serve our basic skills deficient population of youth as well as those without a high school diploma. That means, of course, those dropouts. The court-ordered youth, those are a really hard group to serve. Let me tell you, that's a tough crowd, but we do. E-Squared has been very successful with working with those court-ordered youth because it's very structured and everything's happening in one location. And hopefully, you'll see in a little bit about the model, you'll understand how important it is to put as much as you can under one roof. And I love that they were, the whole theme of this is better together, because we always talk about we need to work, smarter and not harder. If we're all doing the same thing and we work together, it's just going to be that much easier to get, where we need to be. So Let's think of it like that and not take it as a competition. It's not territorial. We're all trying to get to the same place. So let's bring our strengths to the table and make it work. And then we also serve only those that are residing, of course, in our county. In Tarrant County, we bump up to some pretty large programs. So we're really careful to make sure that these are individuals within Tarrant County. The partners in the E-squared program, so early on when we were developing the E-squared, we said, who do we need to bring to the table? Because, you know, as you know, when you start a pilot or you start to do something that's a big change, and I will tell you that E-squared was a huge change. You were bringing two systems together. You're basically bringing Title I and Title II programs to the table, and everybody needs to meet their goals. And we've always done it this way. This is how we've always done it. It's really hard to get people's mindset changed if they've been doing the same thing for a long time. So we knew that early on we needed to all be at the table together and work through those emotions and get everything put aside so that we could really get some work done. Workforce Solutions for Tarrant County, that's our WIOA Youth Program Coordinator, is one of the partners, and of course she was at the table. Goodwill Industries is actually where this E-squared model was born and where it takes place. That's the one location, that's the one site that everything is happening at. And then Fort Worth Independent School District, who is our AEL provider, our Adult Education and Literacy provider, they were also at the table and were part of that partnership, and they're providing that education piece. And to some extent, not even just the HSE attainment, and I'll share some of that with you later. So the first thing that we had to really talk about to get everybody on board, because that's the big thing, right? The biggest chore was to get everybody okay with what we were about to do. You know, emotions are hard to deal with sometimes, and egos are hard. You have people who have been doing things for so long and they just don't want to let go. So we really came to the table with, this is what we can do for you. This is how this is going to make it better for you. And this is how it's going to help our students. So for the students, the common ground outcomes or the benefits definitely was the resources, because as you know, they come with a lot of barriers. Our students come with a lot of needs, and the more resources you can give them, the more successful they're going to be. And under adult education and literacy, we could not provide some of the support services that the students were really needing in order to be successful. So with opening up the E-squared program and this mutual integration, they had all these resources available to them. So the elements of the programs are all happening, like I said, in one place, which was it was a big plus, right? Because if you get them through the door and you get them in there, that's the first thing, right? That's the first task. And then keeping them there, keeping them there is one thing. If they leave, you're never going to get them back. I mean, they're not going to come. If, for example, you send them off to go do something and you have them come back for classes, they're not going to come back that day. So we were like, let's see what we can do about having everything under one. And that's that engagement piece, right? That's keeping them engaged throughout the day for the time that we need them to get through all of these resources and steps. And then the benefit, of course, was the better attainment rates. We found over time, of course, it took a couple of years, like a pilot, any kind of pilot, it takes some time to get everything all smoothed out. And so we didn't have really, really good data right off of at the beginning. However, when we started looking at data, we noticed every year it was getting better, and we were tweaking it as we went along. So the outcomes also are common for the case management. For the support services. So now in adult education and literacy, we're able to provide transportation for the students and, of course, our GED vouchers. And in the past, we were not able to do that. So when we started this model, we in AEL were not allowed to do that. So we really leaned heavily on our Title I partners to pay for those kind of things to keep the students going. But now it's kind of like it's turned out to be a really good win-win, because we're able to do it when they run out of funds to do it. So that's another really benefit for the students. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. If they come up with that need, we can provide it. And the students don't care where the money is coming from. and they don't even need to know. They just need to know their problems are solved. So we share the tracking, so shared performance and tracking. We have a system where at any point in time we can share, that performance piece with each other, as well as, tracking where the students are as far as post-testing for the MSG, because again, on the Title I side now that they're also responsible for MSGs, it's another win-win, right? We're both doing the same thing, like I said earlier, so let's just work together smarter. And then that paid work experience. So the students love the paid work experience, and I'll go through it in more detail here in a bit, but one of the things early on we kind of decided was the paid work experience, that's our little carrot, because what student at that age doesn't love money, right? We all love money. But we thought, there's our carrot. That's how we're going to keep them. That's our retention tool, right? And so they have to attend the classes to prepare for their GED in order to be able to work in the afternoons to get paid. So if they want to make money, they better show up for their AEL class. So that was definitely a win-win for both sides of the house as well as the student. That kept them engaged, and it gave them that push to show up. So, all right, and so the model. So the way the model works is, again, Fort Worth ISD is our AEL provider, and they come in and their instructor comes to the site, has a classroom set up, and the students attend from 8:30 to 11:30 in the morning. So they're doing all of their GED prep. They're doing that Monday through Thursday, and then their work experience happens after lunch. They go to lunch from 11:30 to 12:30, and then from 12:30 to 3:30, they work out in the warehouse, and that's their paid work experience. And again, like I said earlier, if they don't show up for class, then they can't come that day and work. But on the flip side, they also are given the opportunity to be able to work extra hours. So if their attendance is perfect and they keep coming and they're making progress, then they're allowed to come in and work extra hours, maybe on the weekend or on Fridays. So on Fridays, typically what they're doing, that's their life skills. So that's where they're getting that career readiness. They're getting that, that mentorship. That's the time when they bring in employers to talk to them about, their next steps and mentor with them. So Fridays are not optional, but again, as I said earlier, if you have some of those students that are already doing a really good job, they're pretty good with, some of their life skills, they're given the opportunity, if they want to work a little bit extra to make a little bit more gas money, they can do that on Fridays. So it works out really nice for the students. And then I had already mentioned that they are given that 1 hour lunch break. So the co-enrollment piece of it, so really that's what this model is about. It's all about co-enrollment. They're enrolled in both Title I and Title II. So obviously through the adult ed class in the morning, that's their Title II enrollment. And then their Title I is actually through the work piece. And so we have staff that are actually dedicated to this model. So they're hired, it's a youth specialist, which is full time through Goodwill. Goodwill receives a contract from Title I to run this program. And then under that contract, they can hire their employees, to handle this model. And these are the positions that they have kind of taken on. So they have that youth specialist. And the youth specialist really does like that outreach and recruitment, the mentoring with the student, all that hand-holding that really needs to happen, especially with this group. This group is a really tough crowd, so they handle scheduling the exam for the students, so their GED, to make sure that happens, and then does all the documentation in TWIST and so forth. And then you have a WIOA career counselor, which is also a full-time position. And that one comes actually from the workforce center that's connected to this model. And that counselor actually provides, those wraparound services we talked about earlier, that transportation piece or whatever assistance the student needs in order, to remain in the program and complete and be successful. And then they're that industry expert that will come in and talk about the different industries with them. So we're always looking at what's that forward trajectory, what's that next step, not just what's happening in the moment. And then, of course, they're the ones that are going to work on their eligibility and all that fun paperwork stuff you guys know about. So the instructor, again, like I said, comes from Fort Worth ISD, and that's paid for through the Adult Education and Literacy Grant. And that individual is strictly the E-squared instructor, only works with the E-squared program, and they are actually the catapult to get our students into that GED, take their GED and pass it, and then they also provide the CASAS assessment. And I just want to talk just a second really quickly here about CASAS. So when I came to the program in 2016, it was TABE, and the centers were using TABE, and AEL was using TABE. And as a consortium, about 4 years ago, we decided to move over. Maybe it's been, I don't know, COVID threw me off, however many years before COVID. We decided that we were going to go to CASAS. And so when I went to the deputy director of the contractor and said, hey, I'm moving to CASAS, she goes, oh, well, I need to move to CASAS too. Tell me how to get, tests so that we can be doing the same thing. Because we do a lot of that. They'll refer their customers from the centers, and if they come with a CASAS assessment, we're not going to give them another CASAS assessment. That's ridiculous to test a person twice. And then it works vice versa. When we do a reverse referral back to the center, they take our CASAS scores and use that for their eligibility. So it's really helpful for the students because, again, if you start pushing paperwork and testing and everything, you're going to lose them. They're going to be gone. They're like, this is too much. I can't do this. Sometimes I feel like I can't do this. So, again, this is how it's funded. It's braided funding. We are very big in Tarrant County about braided funding because those of you that are not adult education and literacy in the room, we do not get the amount of training dollars that you guys get. When I came to the board and they said, we get, X amount of dollars per person for training, I was like, what? Who gave you that? Like, we need to talk to whoever's giving you that because we get a ridiculous amount of money for training. Like, in order for us to give a quality training, industry recognized credential, which is what we in Tarrant County way back in 2016 made the decision to take quality over quantity and said, we are going to make sure when they walk out of here, it doesn't matter where they are, they can get a job with this. So to do that, it costs money. I mean, it takes money. And we didn't have that money, so we were like, okay, how can we get a little bit of your money? Because we don't have enough money over here. And it really worked out great because that braided funding. So the Title I pays for the youth salaries and the support services. And then the Title II funding pays for that instructor salary for the GED preparation. So we both bring our money. And it's actually expanded from here since this slide, or even, a while back. We found out by accident that Title I funds their time is different than ours. Like, their program year is different than ours. We start getting money earlier than they get their money. So they're kind of running out of money when we get our money. So what happened was we were doing some of the integration or co-enrollment, and the deputy director from the contractor said, well, Jauneen, I can't pay my, because we split the cost of the trainings, right? So we pay half and they pay half. And so it came to the point where she said, I can't give you my half this month. And I'm like, what? And she's like, I'm out of money. And I'm like, okay, well, no problem. I go, we'll pick up 100% until you get your money, and then you can pick up 100% until we're even Steven, right? So that's kind of the deal that we made. And it works out really nice if you can, do that, because now the students, like I said earlier, they don't care where the money's coming from. They don't care who's paying the bills. They just want to get that credential and get out. So it worked out really nice on the funding. And so that's what we're doing with the E-squared model. At a certain breaking point, we start to pick up 100% of some of the costs. When we can, if it's allowable, we cannot pay for their salaries. And so because we can't do that, when it comes to the training piece of this model, we pick up the training, which helps them pay for the salaries. So Works out really nice, but all that takes great communication and willingness to think outside the box and open up your mind and be willing to change what you've done before, so. E-Squared targets, they have a target of 60 WIOA youth to serve each year, and I will tell you that since 2016 when I've been there, they've always exceeded that number. And we're actually exceeding it as we speak. Overall, the program has served 383 students since 2017. Some of that's COVID in there, so the numbers look like you're probably thinking, well, how did you exceed it when, you know, that number? We didn't do great during COVID because, as you know, this population is really hard to keep them engaged. And even though we were giving loaner laptops and working online with them and doing remote classes, we had a hard time getting their attention, right, and keeping them, you know, keeping them in. So, because there was no longer that money piece there, right? We couldn't like tell them, oh, well, you have to come to class or you can't work. Well, I can't work anyway, so they're sleeping in. They're like, forget it. So that was difficult, but we made it through. From October 1st, 21 to September of 22, 14 have received their HSE. So we in adult education and literacy and in this program suffered like we're the victims of a change, let me just say. We used to be able to offer high set, which was a little bit easier, especially for this population. And so when we lost high set and moved to strictly GED online, we saw a dip. Let me just say that, we saw a dip. But we're coming back up. We've had to pivot and make some changes. And so with this program, I'm pretty excited about this year. In fact, we're having our graduation June the 5th, and I'm excited to see what those final numbers come because we give them all the way up to the day of graduation to take their tests. So we'll have more numbers to report. October 1st of 2022 to current, there are 37 enrolled and 11 have received their HSE. So that's where we are right now. Thank you. It's a tough crowd. It's a really tough crowd. I'll tell you, those youth, they're tough cookies. So I heard that there's a session at 2 o'clock on recruitment, just giving a little shout out there on Opportunity Youth. So if y'all don't have something chosen for 2 o'clock, that's probably a great one if you're working with youth, because that's always our struggle. We have both sides of the house doing recruitment and capturing those pots of students and getting them into class. And that's the tough part, like knowing where they are and how to reach them. So I want to share with you really quickly, this is Bradley Cheek. I don't know if there's Kleenex in the room. You might have to pass some around if you have some. This is one of our students that was served early on through E-Squared. This young man actually was living out of the trunk of his car when we recruited him. And he just came into the program and thrived. Like he loved having the structure, the stability, and the support services, but he's going to tell you more about that. But I just always like to take it back to the students, because it's really easy for us in the programs and with what we do to forget why we're doing it, right? We're filling out papers, we're checking boxes, we're being in compliance, staying out of those orange jumpsuits, you know? We're always trying to like second guess ourselves and think, are we gonna make this? Are we gonna be able to keep our funding? But we forget why we're trying to keep our funding and what we're doing this for. And so that's one of the things, I've been doing this for quite a while. I'm not gonna tell you how long because that'll really date me. But I started boots on the ground. I started like, literally, I was a data person way back when I started, and I just kind of was able to work my way up. But I went into the classroom, which was the best days of my life. I loved working with students. I love having that contact. I'm really a people person, and so that's one of the things I miss. And I tell my staff all the time and myself, I'll go out and do site visits, not because, well, kind of for compliance, you know. But really because I need that connection. I need I need to charge my batteries, right? I need to know, hey, these are human people behind these numbers that we're trying to hit, right? And man, when you hear stories and you get out there and you just go, gosh, we did that. I went out to a site and a student shared with me, Ms. Maldonado, like, I remember when, and I'm just like, oh my God, don't tell people that, But anyway, he's like, yeah, he goes, this is my sister and she's going through GED. And he actually came through as an English language learner, got his GED, and went to work for the police department. So he was like, he always wanted to work for the police department and didn't think he was ever going to be able to. So it's just things like that where you think, we're doing little things in our mind, but there are huge things in these people's lives that we're doing. So I think it's important sometimes for us to stop and understand, what we're doing and why we're doing it. So let me share this with you, and hopefully it will work.
My name is Bradley Cheek, and I'm a test proctor and former graduate of E Squared here at Goodwill Industries of Fort Worth.
It's showing here. Sorry. Leave it to Jauneen for technical difficulties. Second link down there just in case I didn't.
I'm from a small East Texas.
I know, and I did them both thinking that, Oh, maybe from there. Oh. Well, maybe we can just listen to it. Okay, yeah. It's picking up the sound. Yeah, at least it's got the sound.
At Goodwill Industries of Fort Worth. I'm from a small East Texas town. My parents divorced when I was 12, dropped out of high school. My mom and I moved to DFW. After having dropped out of high school, getting my GED seemed like something that I didn't know if I would be able to do. And we were walking into a Goodwill one day, and she saw the flyer. It said, "Do you need a high school diploma? Do you need a job?" And I said yes. To be honest, before we called the number on the flyer, I was under the impression that maybe I'd be working in one of the Goodwill stores and maybe we'd have class during work hours. That impression was completely changed when I got here. Coming into E Squared, I was a little skeptical, but after a week or two, I began to be more immersed in the program. What E Squared really did for me was showed me how you work in a professional environment, how you carry yourself. It just showed me a lot that I'd never experienced before. Without E Squared right now, I would be homeless. I owe everything to Goodwill. The relationships they've shown me that I've been able to build with my coworkers and the work experience, figuring out how business relationships work, learning about administration, has all just really made me more than grateful, more than I could ever express. Right now I am proctoring tests for Goodwill. We're opening a testing center here at the Campus Drive location. I mean, this is my first job. So going through that and seeing what I can accomplish in an office environment, in a professional environment, really encouraged me. My experience with E Squared and Goodwill has opened a lot of doors for me, and I think that through enrolling in college this fall, I can zero in on a field that really interests me. I really appreciate all of the support and love that the Goodwill E Squared staff and other students have shown me, and am really glad that I'm able to be in a position to reciprocate that. What I was shown at Goodwill changed my perspective on education and my education.
Okay, so that was, yeah. He was definitely, he not only, went to work for Goodwill, but then he did actually enroll in the Tarrant County College and the community college for his associate's degree, so, yeah. And I'm not sure how to get back to this presentation, but.
I think we're going to move to
Q&A.
questions that you guys have, and then Valerie is going to come around with a mic, so you guys know how this works. Just wait until she gets there so we can get it, so everybody can hear the questions.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation and your how you explained your partnerships. So I'm trying to do something similar with my contractor sitting right here. And I was wondering, for your work experience sites, were they at the Goodwill stores? And so that's how you had the flexibility of them working particular hours versus 8 to 5 or whatever?
Okay, you guys can hear me? Okay. So yeah, it happens at Goodwill. They're doing the work experience in the warehouse on site. So it's all happening at the same location, and they actually eat lunch in the break room there, so they don't ever leave the site.
Okay, thank you. How long is your program?
So the program is year-round, and it's as long as the students need for that GED attainment. So those of you that are adult ed know sometimes that's different for each. I mean, it's always different for each student. But we don't give them a time limit on how long they can stay in that program.
Thank you. Good morning, and appreciate your presentation. Curious about examples of integrated ESL that you could speak to, whether in Tarrant County or maybe across the state. Are there options for working with a local community college to create bilingual integrated, so it's not ESL and then technical training, but it's merged into one? Is that something that's happening? Are there best practices across the state that we could learn from? Thank you.
So I can't speak for the whole state, but I can tell you in Tarrant County, we're always integrating, and ESL is definitely one of our populations that we're focusing on, because typically we serve about 70%, 30%, 65 percent-ish, depending. It fluctuates. So we're always looking for those opportunities for our ELL students, for our English language learners. And we do a similar model. We have an integration model that we're doing for adults, and it's called A Squared. We just kicked it off. We just had our first cohort in January start, so we're excited about it, with kind of the same concept as E Squared for those adults, but it's more of a fast track for GED or for the ESL language. So what we're doing, it's more intensive. Generally, our ESL classes are twice a week, 3 hours a day. We're asking our students to commit to 4 days a week minimum, and doing about 5 hours a day. So with that, we offer them the ability to be able to work in the afternoons again out in the warehouse and make a little bit of money if they need to put their life on hold for about 5 weeks. It's about a 5-week program. And so with that, we're targeting also those ELL students, especially those intermediate to high ELL students, and working them through the trajectory of getting them either into an IET, an integrated education and training, so that they can get that credential and then, of course, go to work. So, and that's a co-enrollment. They're enrolled in both WIOA Title I and, of course, our Title II, as long as they qualify for Title I. Yeah. I hope that answered your question.
There's one up here in the front, Valerie.
Thank you. Here you go.
I'll be your spotter. I got you covered.
Hi. Thanks again for your guys' brief. My question's on the program management side. I noticed you said you were on the sat at the board as well. When you guys went from allowing, I guess, your data inputs into Twist from at the board level down to the contractor, did you guys see many error rates in Twist and kind of the program management side of it? Because that's what we're working on right now, is trying to really reduce the amount of forms that we have. That was a really good point. And allowing our contractor more flexibility by, inputting the data into Twist themselves.
So I will tell you, again, I think I mentioned earlier, I'm from data, and when I actually took over or became, the lead of the grant, we inherited a grant that was on a tap for data issues. So that's a really sore spot for me. So I'm very choosy about who I give data entry access to on team side, as well as my counterpart that works with the Twist side. There's specific roles. So like you saw earlier with the career counselor and everybody involved, there's one data entry person for this program. And so she does all of their data in both Twist and then also in teams. So because of the integration and the co-enrollment, I don't know if you all know, but adult education and literacy is under a teams database. And then, of course, you all have Twist. And I'm praying for the day we can marry. Please, God, let us marry. Because it's two systems. I mean, it's just ridiculous and it's so redundant. But we don't see a lot of error rates. I think the key to that is the least amount of hands in the pot, and then making sure you're training adequately and constantly, reviewing and validating. So.
And I just want to say, too, to Jauneen's point, we've been really trying to push this, I think, from the state level. These are your WIOA required partners. Don't have this heartache about giving them access to Twist. We won't have a heartache about giving you access to teams. The goal is to co-enroll and to track students across systems, and maybe even in the future be talking about common exit. It just, as long as WIOA isn't going to go anywhere, it's just something we have to get used to just letting go. And doing that. And it's going to make the absolute most sense. I love our team system, but it's very instructor based. Twist is case management based. It gives you so much more information about what types of supportive services and services those students are receiving from your board partners. So I would say, you have those MOUs, let's make them count. Let's get those things ironed out in there through your collaborations, and let's not have any fear going into that space together. Any other questions?
One here in the front.
We have 2 minutes.
I was just going to ask, what trainings were they doing? What, like warehouse forklift or what?
So in the warehouse or at Goodwill for these individuals, then they're able to go into a logistics credential. So they're able to do like the forklift and those. And we try to stack it so that because of our program years, and you all know we still have that performance thing that hangs over that you got to do in order to keep on being able to serve. We try to make it so that they're getting those along the way, so that it doesn't matter how long it takes them to get to the ending. So, but yeah, it's certified logistics through them. I'm sorry? Goodwill. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Goodwill. She asked who the training provider was. So. All right, I think that's our time. Right? Are we? Okay.
All right.
Thank you
guys.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day.